Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of kick-butt heroines in romantic dark fantasy worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking across multiple genres, including motorcycle, paranormal, and contemporary romance. Known for books such as Steel Bones Motorcycle Club and Stone County series, we are talking to the one and only Cate C. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Better now that you're on. I'm super excited for this interview.
All right. So it's 9 o'clock where you are in the morning, 6 o'clock where I am. So we'll see,
We'll see where we go.
see if,
But
yeah,
both
will
on
these be morning or evening vibes? Who knows?
but both on caffeine. So we
Yes.
may be at an even playing level. We'll see. Take me back to the start of your journey. Why did you start writing and how did you find publishing for the first time?
So it's not a pretty story. But I always tell it because it's the truth. I put my foot through my deck. So behind my house, I was a teacher. I had been a teacher for many, many years. And I have a tiny little, duplex in a former steel mill town, Baltimore City. I'm right on the city line. And so I had this, it's an old house, about 100-year-old house, and the deck wasn't 100 years old, but it was feeling its age. I put my foot through the deck, and my daughter at that time she was about two, I think. And I thought to myself, if I don't do something, I'm never going to get anywhere. I'm never going to be able to, have the things I want or the life I want or the things I want for my daughter, and for my family. And so I looked at myself. I said, well, what can I do? What skill do I have? And I had one that I could write. And I'd written all my life. I love writing. I had minored in writing in college. I gave it up when I quit smoking, oddly enough, as a young person. It was about 23, and sort of my habit was I would write all night long, drinking tea and smoking cigarettes. And then when I quit smoking, I had to stop doing the things I did when I smoked for a while so that I could cut the habit. And I stopped writing. I just didn't get back into it. In any kind of serious way, for 20 years almost, or 15 years. Then I put my foot through the deck, and I was like, I can write. I know I can write. I love to write. I don't know if anybody wants to read what I write, but we're gonna find out. And so I wrote a Regency romance called Schooling the Earl that is never gonna see the light of day. Absolute garbage. um, I will spoil the plot for you. At the end, she literally falls off a cliff. She does not die, but it ends on a literal cliffhanger.
Oh my
Plot spoiler: she is rescued. Oh, it's absolute. It's terrible. It's terrible. And I wrote it on that deck, kind of sitting on an IKEA stool, while my daughter played in her little swimming pool or played in her little sandbox. I was just sitting there, writing my story. And then I wrote another book and another book. And then finally, I wrote Charge, which is the first book in my motorcycle club series. And this entire time, I had a wonderful critique group that had Rebecca Rivard, who writes paranormal romance. She does vampires and shifters. She has this really cool Fada shapeshifter world that she's created. And she was the guru. She knew everything. And she taught me everything I knew. And then Nona Henry was in that group. And then we had another member, who ended up moving, and we would meet once a month, critique each other's work. Rebecca would teach me all of the things I needed to know, like what does KDP stand for? What does it do? And when they read Charge, Rebecca said, you could publish this. She's like, just slap some Manchester on it and put it out there. And so I'm like, all right. Rebecca says I can, so I'm going to slap some Manchester on it. I'm going to put it out. And I did, and people bought it and they read it, and they connected with me on social media, and it was the most amazing feeling in my entire life.
When did you then start seeing the momentum for your career? When were you able to take it full time? So we published in 2019. What
Yes.
did that timeline look like for you?
I kept publishing in the Motorcycle Club series, and I was slowly gaining readers, but I hit a ceiling that I just couldn't break. And it was not enough to quit my day job. And the first break that I got was when I wrote in a different subgenre. I wrote a mafia book called Run Posey Run. And actually, I don't think it was the first time I had experimented with switching subgenres before that. I wrote the first book in the Stone Cut County series. So I wrote a steamy small town romance, figuring that my readers might come over. It's a crossover novel with the MC series. And it did fine. It did okay. It did good, but I wasn't really leveling up. And then I wrote Run Posey Run, and Katie Roberts read it and she liked it. And she started talking about it, and I had no idea because she was on this thing called TikTok, and I didn't know about that except that the kids were always on it. And so eventually one of the readers in my Facebook group was like, "Are you ever going to answer Katie Roberts?" And I'm like, "I what?" And so then I had to get a TikTok account just to see like what she was saying. And she liked my book, and that was really amazing. And she talked about it, and so other people read the book, and I started, getting some momentum there. And it was I was on my way to being in the place where I could quit my day job. And then, just like, I was listening to Nina, and there was so much of Nina Levine's story that was resonating with me. I had my husband and I and my daughter, we all caught COVID in November of 2020. So this was pre-vaccine. And we had it pretty bad. And in my case, it triggered, I have a condition called sarcoidosis, which is an inflammatory disease. And it triggered that. And it was really debilitating. It was extremely debilitating. And I was in a place where I couldn't physically do my job. And I was also, because God is good, and the universe can sometimes give you exactly what you need in the moment you need it. That's when my PNR book, Tyrant Alpha, the Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate, came out, and it just went and so then I both couldn't work and I was able to quit at like the same moment. And it was a lifesaver. It was amazing. um and that book, that was just a side project I was doing for shits and giggles.
Yeah. And so
So,
that's quite interesting because that book now has just short of 6,000 reviews. Probably when this goes up, it's probably at 6,000 reviews. So let's say congratulations. Let's manifest that.
oh, thank you.
Yay. Tell us a little bit about that series then. How did you go with the inspiration, especially in a new genre? So tell us, for those who haven't yet read it, and they should, what it's about.
So it's a shifter world, where there are 5 shifter packs, and they coexist. They live separately from humans, but humans know about them and they know about humans. And in this particular pack, it's a very male dominated kind of culture. They make their money by fighting on the shifter circuit. So kind of like an MMA style circuit where they fight, males from other packs and each other, for human entertainment and for it's a betting kind of thing. And so it's a very jock kind of culture. And the alpha of the pack, his name is Killian, and he kind of figures he doesn't have a mate. He's gotten kind of old. He's never older. He's never, met his mate. And then one day, he's at dinner, and Una, who is one of the lowest ranking members of the pack, she was injured as a child, and she never quite recovered from those injuries because it was so bad. She was attacked, and so she has a limp. She has a physical disability, and she has no male relatives, so she's considered unprotected. So she's sort of kept to the side. Una approaches him in the middle of the pack dinner and says, we're mates. And he's like, no way. I would know. I would feel it. and I would never be mated to someone like you. Um, so she she runs off, she leaves, and there's a character named Obertha, who's sort of the wise woman, and that kind of floats amongst the packs. And Una connects with Obertha, and Obertha, through magical means, removes the mate bond from Una, but doesn't remove it from Killian. And so the story is Killian coming to realize that he was mistaken. And it's revealed, of course, at the end of the story why he didn't recognize that mate bond. And so he's got some groveling to do and some distance to make up with her. And that's the Tyrant Alpha's rejected mate, which is the first in the series. And then the series is they're all different couples from the 5 packs, but they all have that common thread of one of the mates being rejected by the other. And then the original fated mates always end up together.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of tropes and butter in there.
Yeah. It's very buttery.
I love it. Well, one thing I do want to talk about then is writing multiple genres, because when I first came across your amazingness, it was during a RAM roundtable, and you were discussing writing multiple genres under one name. And I know it's very difficult for a lot of authors because there's advice everywhere, and it's if you're going into a different genre, you must have another pen name. It'll ruin your branding. Or if something's working for you now, stay in your lane. If that's a genre, that is the only genre you'll be known for, and things such as. So you have a different opinion, and it has successfully worked for you as well. So I'd really like to be enlightened on your thoughts around that, about writing multiple genres under one name.
I happened into a lot of this. It wasn't done strategically necessarily. Like the Tyrant Alpha's rejected mate, I just wrote that as a side project because I had the story in me and I wanted to tell it. And what I told myself was, well, I'm just going to take like a month or two, off from the main writing gig, and I'm going to write this thing that's in my head. And it paid out for me. And then kind of retrospectively, I look at when I follow my bliss, when I do the thing that I really want to do, it works out really well. And so if I see a trend, if I see a pattern in my life that's working for me, then I'm going to stick with it. And the pattern that I see that's working for me is following my bliss or doing what excites or interests me. It makes me think about when Becca Syme talks about those author archetypes. She talks about people who are, I think this is a characteristic of either the evergreen or the island, or it might be a characteristic of both of the archetypes, where they kind of like, you have to do what you want to do. You can't, and I'm that way. I can't write what I don't want to write. I can't make myself do it. And so I feel like we have to work with our parameters of who we are as artists, as creators, and that some things we can change, some things we can tweak, some areas where we can grow, but some things are just at the core of what we are. And if you take that away, then I'm not sure if I don't know I'm not sure if it's worth doing. Like I don't know if I could write books that I didn't want to write.
Yeah.
Because I thought they'd sell. I'd want to do that, but I don't think I could.
It's very difficult sometimes because there definitely is a lot of influence coming in, and there are so many incredible authors. And then, especially when comparisonitis comes into it as well, and you think, I want to be like that author, or I want to write books like this, and then trying to figure out what the next cookie cutter bestseller is going to be. And I think that's where a lot of authors get confused now as well, is because they think I need to write a certain way in a certain style with certain tropes because that's what's it may be trending now. And this does work for a lot of people, but for a lot of other people it doesn't. As you said, those who really need to follow their muse and they find challenge in writing, especially at that time, they're really feeling like they're gritting it out. And a part of me feels like readers can really sense that as well. It's so common to have hear authors say, it was just a passion project. I was just writing it for fun on the side. And then as soon as they released it, that was the one that went banana for them. So would you agree with that in a sense?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if you're hot for it, there's a reason. There's a reason you want to write it, and so other people would be too. I think that writing, I don't know if you played with dolls when you were little or if you played dress up or pretend, but I like that's where all of this really started. And so the stories that I like to tell myself and the worlds that I like to create, this feels like an extension of that. And if I'm excited about it and interested in it to make it, then I think that other people will want to play along. Like they can sense that, like, and they want to join and ride along. But if I were faking it, I mean, I don't know if they would. The more I do this, the more it feels like the natural extrapolation of whatever that kind of storytelling thing was as a child. Um, that another thought, and I'll just share the thought because I think about it. I work with Mal Cooper a bit on different projects, and we were talking about this particular subject, and she said, "Well, diversifying makes sense in terms of business. So if you and that's sort of what I like about what I've done is I've created a world that's big enough that any story I want to tell, unless it's in outer space, can go into one of my series. And so if something, falls apart or something doesn't do well, or becomes less popular, then I have other worlds that I can kind of just build onto so that my backlist is going to grow.
I would love to hear the conversation that you had with yourself when you decided to start writing different genres, especially paranormal, which is slightly different again to what your core is, which is everything. Did you consider having a pen name for yourself, and what was your decision not to?
I vaguely did. I did. And I thought I even brainstormed a couple names that sounded a little bit more paranormal science fiction. I've written a science fiction fantasy romance as well, which I'd like to get back to at some point in time. Um, and so I did kind of think about it. But then again, a conversation that I had with Mal Cooper, where Mal said, if you keep the same name and you go to another subgenre, and let's say, 1% or 10% of your readers follow you, well, that's 1% or 10% that you're starting with that you wouldn't have otherwise. And so you're not starting from zero. And that made a lot of sense to me. Because I think that the big counter argument that I see is if you keep the same name, then it muddies up your also bots on Amazon, right? And I have no answer to that because if you look at my also bots, they're all subgenres that I write, but they are mixed up. Yeah. So they're not pure MC or, pure PNR. But I think Amazon's good enough that they generally like if the person is obviously, a PNR reader, I think that they're going to be seeing those PNR books. Yeah, I think they're pretty good at their game.
Yeah. Can you briefly explain to who Mel Cooper is? Is she a fellow author or is she a mentor or?
Yes, Mel Cooper she's a science fiction author. She's also a writing coach. She built my website. She does that. She does a lot of presentations. She just presented at 20 Books in Las Vegas. She talks a lot in terms of her nonfiction writing. I discovered her through her book, Help My Facebook Ads Suck. Which is actually the most lucid explanation of how Facebook ads work, and how to get them to work for you that I have read. And she actually worked for Facebook, I believe, as a contractor. Her history is in the tech world. That's where her past is. So she knows a lot about how these things work. And then I worked with her on, she's going to help me. We're looking into setting up a direct sales platform on my website. So we're going to be doing that next. Yeah, so I highly recommend. She also has an amazing book on how to write blurbs. She has an excellent kind of system for how to do it. That if you take her system on how to write blurbs and Theodora Taylor's 7-figure fiction and marry them, then I think that you can't do better,
Yeah.
in
So
my
Mel,
opinion.
we must look out for. We love Mel.
Mhm. Yeah.
We were speaking briefly before this interview, and one thing that really grabbed my attention was exponential growth
Mhm.
and the pressure that that brings to authors who have had a really rapid and quick success. And then when they get to that point, they've broken through the glass ceiling, they freeze because it's a
Yeah.
whole new different playing game. And I believe that you had experienced this as well. So can
Oh
you
yeah.
explain a little bit of that to us, and also what advice you would have for authors who may be experiencing it or do in the future?
I think we talked about how once you have that success, even my success was, in comparison to most people, is very small, but a level of success that I'd never seen before, couldn't even imagine having. And then knowing that whatever I do next is going to suck in comparison, just because the law of average, like the odds of me having an amazing sophomore album were, probably as good as any artist, and they're never good, right? You have the breakout first album, and then the sophomore album, everybody's like, oh, what a disappointment. And I knew it was going to happen. And at the same time, because of the buzz generated by the first book, the second book had 3 times the amount of pre-orders. It launched way further up the charts than the first book. The first book, had to earn its way, but the second book, people were, they were primed for it. And so I knew that it was going to break bigger than I'd ever seen, and it was going to suck more. And I could see it coming at me like a train, and I knew it was going to happen. And God bless my beta readers and my ARC readers who said, oh, I like it even better than the first. And I know it was a pity review, but like, or just, maybe some people genuinely did like that second book better. I'm not good at writing the same kind of book. I always write very different books one from the next, and so I just knew that it wasn't going to hit as big. And yet by the numbers it hit much bigger. But then it fades, it faded, sooner than that first one. And the first one is the one that's generating, it came out, the French translation came out with BMR Hatchet in it came out on November 9th. And so now I'm getting this cool Instagram tagged. I'm tagged on Instagram in these French posts, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what they say. I have to go by the stars because I don't know.
The
But
stars are
stars are a
universal.
universal language. Yeah. How to deal with that? I'm just, in my mind, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I love this. So I'm going to keep writing books as long as people keep reading them. So therefore, some of them are going to suck. As Elena Johnson says, some of them are going to be mega donkeys.
I
Have you
saw
heard her talk about that?
I saw her on IncaCon, and she's fantastic. I absolutely loved her speech, but exactly that. She was saying some were, what was it, donkeys, and then you have
Racehorses.
your racehorses, which are the key winners, the best books, and then sometimes you can paint, what was it, a donkey like a bit like a zebra, or maybe get a little bit
Yeah.
more of it, but it's a donkey and leave it behind.
Yep. So kind of accept that. And then I've tried to follow this from the very beginning. I have a post-it note on my bulletin board there that says nothing is precious. Like if I make anything too precious, then I don't move on, I don't move ahead, or I get my emotions too wrapped up in what happens with it. And I can't do that because I want to do this, as a lifetime thing. So this one, it was a donkey. Nothing's precious, move on. Or I learned something from this I'm going to write the next book.
Yeah. What then does your day to day look like? Because it is not easy being an author, as we all know. And you're talking about translations. You are writing, I think you said book 17, book 18 at the moment, which is a lot of books in 3 years of publishing as well, might I add. So you've got all of this happening. We've got contracts, we've got new things coming out. What does your 9 till 5 look like?
So I also have I have my daughter, she's 8 and she's turning 9. And one of the amazing things about, writing is that I can I can put the writing around her.
Yeah.
Before, when I was teaching, I had to slot her in, after everyone else got their piece of me. She got what was left, and I don't want that anymore. So I wake up, she gets her breakfast, and I do, the little business things. I call it checking my traps. So I look at all my data, I look at all my dashboards, I check my inbox, see if any, what's come in, respond to things that I can respond to quickly. So I do that for the first hour, then I take her to school, and when I come back, then it's writing time. And I have, if I'm drafting that day, I have a word count that I want to hit. And what's been very tricky, and I think Nina was talking about this, is how to be as prolific as I can be without burning myself out, and also centering my physical health, because I didn't do that as a teacher. That was the 10th thing on the list, and my body let me know it. My body was like, well, we're just not going to work anymore. How about that? And so I have to make sure that the gym, that the acupuncturist, or that the doctor's appointments, that those are on the Trello board. I use Trello now, and those are kind of centered. And so I have a word count, or if it's a revision day, I have a number of chapters that I want to do, or a number of tasks that I want to do. And I go to the gym, and then I pick my daughter up. And then in the evenings, I go back and I do social media. I do, work on other projects, whatever the administrative stuff is that I need to do.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
The stuff
I love data, and I love
so lucky.
I love it. Well, it's easier to me than writing. Writing's hard. I love it, but it's hard. Yeah. And I've also, before I could write, while my daughter was talking to me and she's playing in the sandbox and I'm sitting there, I've become so pampered. I can't do that now. It's hard for me to write unless it's quiet now, which was, I didn't have that luxury before.
It's funny how our process changes over time as well. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I plot.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love a plot. I didn't always plot. That first book that I wrote, the Regency romance, I didn't know what I was doing, so I just wrote a book. And what I told myself was, it doesn't matter if it's good. It doesn't matter if just write it. Just finish it. That's all you got to do, is finish it. And you worry about whether it's good or not afterwards. And Cecilia Mecca. Have you heard of Cecilia Mecca? She's a historical romance author. And I don't know, I think it was through RWA, which I had belonged to at the time. I do not any longer. I think we connected somehow there, and she read it for me, and she came back and she's like, oh, you need to get a book on what plot is. And then she recommended one. It was amazing. And she was absolutely right. The book didn't have a plot. It did continue chronologically, but it did not have a plot. And so I did get a book on plot, and it was an okay book. But when I found Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes, that's when it clicked.
Yeah.
And that's when I understood what I was doing.
Yeah. So you've made a lot of recommendations too as to resources that really helped you. So I just want to do a quick little question then as to what are some of those again. some of the resources that really helped you accelerate your career, whether it was Facebook groups, podcasts, mentors, courses? What were they?
Oh, okay. Michelle Fox has a Facebook ad course through Margie Lawson's Writing Academy that is extremely good in helping you conceptualize what makes for a good Facebook ad. There's tons of books and courses that will tell you how to do them, but she really gives you a big picture that's kind of centered in good marketing and writing good ad copy, that I think is super useful. In terms of craft, Theodora Taylor's Seven Figure Fiction is amazing. I can't say enough about Gwen Hayes' Romancing the Beat. If you're starting out, I recommend everything that David Gowran does. He has a book, Let's Get Digital, which is a very cheesy title. He's a very cheesy man. But he also has a newsletter, and he has podcasts, and he has a free course. And for somebody who's just starting out, he is the best. He doesn't try and upsell you. I think he he uses affiliate links and he lets you know when he does. But other than that, he's just kind of a gift. I've learned a lot from Marie Force has a Facebook author group, Author Support Network, that I learned a lot from when I was starting out. I'm not sure if it's super active anymore. And the 20 Books Facebook group has a lot of information in it. There's a lot of information.
Yes. So what would you say then the most for you so far in your writing career? What has been the most surprising thing you found in the industry?
That is such a tricksy question. Because I was so ignorant that everything surprised me in a way. But I think that before I did this, before Rebecca Rivard said slap some man chest on it, and put it out there, I did not know that I could make a living at this. Like, I could do this. And part of that, I think, is just, those blocks that, sometimes you can't see. You won't let yourself see what is possible for whatever reason. And it's possible, and you can do it, and you can learn and figure out absolutely everything, and you had no idea that you were capable of it.
Yeah.
But you are. Yeah, Amazon has, and other companies as well have given us the ability to make a living as artists. And that wasn't true 20 years ago. Like when I was in college, writing, that was, somebody would have had to pick me. I couldn't pick myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you have such a way with words. What a surprise.
You wait till you hear what I do for a living.
Tell me more. What are the three things that you do every release? You have a release coming up. What are your three foundations, whether it's social media, whether it's ads, newsletter? What are your three must-dos for every release now?
Goodreads giveaways. Alessandra Torre has, her and Goodreads are like this. And she, if you sign up for her newsletter, she is definitely going to be having a free course or a free workshop about using Goodreads. But you can also just go on Goodreads and check it out. They have an expensive version. Don't do that one. They have an inexpensive version for about $119. And basically you do it before you release, run it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then when people enter your giveaway, and you give away a certain number of free ebooks or paperbacks, I do the ebook, then your book is automatically added to their TBR, and then when your book comes out, they are reminded that your book came out, so they get a notification of release, like your book club followers would. And that alone would be worth it, because when I do the math, for each lead like that I get, each reader that enters, it's a couple cents. So it's as good as good as I can do on a Facebook ad in terms of cost per click, if you want to look at it that way. And also when people enter, I think it shows up in their feed, so their friends see that this book has been added to their TBR. So you're getting exposure. And there's just no other way that I know of besides Facebook ads to get that kind of large exposure. So I think they're great. Also, if you look at who's doing them, and you're like, oh, that's where the big names are. That's so I'm gonna do what they do. So Goodreads giveaways. What else? Oh, ARCs, of course, and asking my ARC readers to share on their social media. When they sign up for my ARCs on a Google form, I ask them, could you share? Are you going to share on your TikTok? Are you going to share on your Instagram? It's kind of like suggest that they might do that. Because I love the reviews. The reviews are awesome, but I also want them to tell people about it. And even if they don't particularly like it, or if they're kind of on the fence about it, I tell people about it. I'm not super worried about it being a 5-star. I would like it to be, but I want people to know about the book that is coming out. And oh gosh, so you said 3. Another thing, I always make the book before this book free for 5 days, and then I stack promos for it. So when book 3 of the series comes out, book 2 is going to be free for 5 days leading up to and directly after it, and then I'm going to stack those promos like nobody's business.
I love that. Who are some of the promo services that you like to use off the top of your head? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Oh, that's no problem. Absolute favorite is Freebooksy. And I usually get the Freebooksy with the Red Feather Romance add-on. Third favorite is Fussy Librarian. Everybody else is lower down the list. So ENT is okay. Robin Reed's okay. I've never gotten a BookBub because I am a Kindle Unlimited author, or they just don't like the cut of my jib. I'm not sure. Yeah, I will not say what I do not like, but I will say Freebooksy, you can't do better.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. What has been so far for you your greatest challenge and your greatest accomplishment?
Greatest accomplishment, quit my day job.
Yep.
And doing this full time. It's a dream. I never thought that I would be able to do it. And I'm doing it, and it's a whole different world. And then the greatest challenge, quit my day job. And managing myself, being my own boss. I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about how when I was a teacher and I'm working, in the public schools, we were always lectured about, or not always, this is kind of a more recent development, but we were always lectured about self-care. And of course we were told that you need to practice self-care. We weren't given time to do it or money to do it, or anything like that. But we were definitely told that it was our responsibility to do self-care. But the way the job was structured was, you burn yourself out because there's too much work to ever finish. And since you're doing it for kids, right, then you feel this great weight and obligation. So your evenings, you're working, you're grading papers. So your weekends, you're working, you're graded papers. And, so self-care, just, that's got to come last, because first has to come the kids, and then, the kids at school and your kids and, your family and all those things. And then now that it's on me, I'm like, oh, hold on. No, self-care. If I don't do the self-care, I can't write.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if my back hurts, I can't sit at the keyboard. If I don't have that mental alertness, then I can't make good stories. So I can't put myself last, anymore. And, but like, that's breaking the the habit of a lifetime.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people out there who do that with their day jobs, and then they're writing, or they're putting everything into their writing, and then they get to the point of burnout, and then you can't do anything. And I think it's a lesson that every single author learns at some point, that you really have to try to put yourself first, because we all give each other such great advice. We're like, you need to put yourself first, you need to take this day off. And yet, very rarely do we do it ourselves. And I feel like that, to a degree, is an element of success, is actually being able to find that balance where you can allow yourself to have that time because you know that you're still going to get the work done, but you're just not smashing yourself in the process. It's a really interesting web of balance. And at some point, I feel like everyone hopefully figures it out, hopefully before burnout, but sometimes we all learn from lessons learned and mistakes. So
yeah, I haven't perfected it yet, but I'm closer than I've ever been before.
don't worry, either have I. I'm great at the speech and I'm great at the advice. It's so bad. So I have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. So you and I are going to go on a very romantic date. I lit a candle. I've created ambience. Yes, swoon worthy. That's me.
Ambient.
Yeah, and the coffee. Sorry, I didn't bring the wine, but it's not 10 a.m. here yet. So,
Yeah.
but basically, it's 5 rapid questions.
Hold on. Is 10 a.m. when Australians are like, it's cool to drink now?
Yeah, like, I mean, if somebody, it depends, because if it's Christmas Day, in my household, the family starts at like, they're like, well, it's 8 a.m., but it's Christmas. So, it depends. But yeah, 10 a.m. is the appropriate time when the pubs will open and the bottle O's will
Whoa.
open. What about
So
you?
the saying here is it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh yeah, we say that too.
Okay. Oh, I guess that would be the end of the. I think noon is the hour at which it is considered proper. That nobody pays attention to that.
Because I'm just like, maybe that's it here too. Maybe it is noon and I just had 10 a.m. in my mind because it suits me better. I don't know.
I don't know, but now I'm going to have to find out.
We'll Google, we'll do a poll. We will go up and do a
Yeah.
poll.
When is it acceptable to pour a glass of wine?
When do you
Nobody will answer that seriously.
I'll be like 5 a.m. as soon as I wake up, coffee done. Oh, okay.
All right. The ambiance. Okay, we're speed
The
dating.
ambiance,
Right.
yes. We're speed dating. We're not drunks. So we're speed dating
Yeah.
romantically. We have 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. What's the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Clumsiest moment I've ever had. Um, I I've got one. I was on a super romantic date when I was much, much younger with a boy that I was madly in love with. I was a kid. I was like 17 years old probably. And we went to a park and he was swinging me romantically in a tire swing. And I got my ass stuck in it. Like firmly stuck in the tire swing. And he had to like pull me up and like use his foot to like dislodge me from the swing set. We got married. We've been together. No, we did not. Did not get married.
He dislodged you from a swing.
He dislodged me. I got stuck, and my ass stuck in a tire swing.
I feel like that could be like the opening scene in your next book. It doesn't matter what genre. That's it. That's the opening scene. Did you go on another date after this? I don't know if this is going to bring up trauma or.
Oh no, I think so. I think we did. Yeah. He's too tall.
Yeah, I wasn't
At
going
the
to
end
work
of
out.
the day. Yeah, he's ridiculously tall.
Yeah, that's the worst. We hate though. We hate that in real life and practicality, but in books we like 6'6", yes. But in
Yeah.
reality it hurts our neck, so
Yeah.
it was to be. What is the song that best describes you?
Crazy by Gnarls Barkley.
I love it. I'm not going to comment.
It's a good song. It's a
It is a
catchy
good
song.
song. What are the 3 words that best describe you?
So I'm very, very interested and very curious about people, things. I want to know about people's business. I would like, yes, like, would you want to see my model airplanes? Yes, I want to see your model airplanes.
So
I can.
No, I'm kidding. We'll go curious.
I am grateful, extremely grateful, for everything that I have in my family and this career, and the people that read my books and spend time with me. I think it's awesome. Um, I the third word, I'm myself. I'm very I don't know, I don't know what word
Unique.
other than that to describe it. Unique, yeah, sure, yeah.
I
Like
describe
like
myself with
I
that, so it's fine.
yeah. Yeah, I can't. I've tried to be other people or like other people, and I have failed miserably every time.
I remember I can relate to this because I remember my mother saying to me at quite a young age, Cara, you couldn't be anyone else even if you tried. And as an adult, I've learned to embrace that, but high school was rough.
I know. Yes. Yep. It becomes an asset, but not for a long time.
No. And I used to be so jealous of my sister because she's like a chameleon. She could just like merge into every sort of, and I'm just like, boom, I'm here. Who wants to play?
But people do tend to remember your name,
There we go.
which is yeah,
For better
which
or
is
for
good.
worse, who knows? But that's
Yep.
fine. Who has been your favorite character to write and why?
Uh, I have a character, Plum. Her real name is Jo Beth. Plum is her stage name. She's a stripper. She's in one of my MC novels called Plum. That's a Molly O'Hare. She has a podcast called Day Drinking with Authors, and she had me on, and Plum is her favorite character, and she like read it. She read a little. She read the back cover, I think it was, and I was so super stoked that she liked her too, because the book starts out like if you it's hard to hang for the first chapter, but if you can get past the first chapter, then you'll love Plum too. She's a scrapper, and I love a scrapper. I love somebody who's, life has not been easy, but they are not, but they are tough as nails.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but with the heart of gold,
So
that
Plum.
somebody extremely rich and extremely attractive sees and appreciates
Yeah.
and
We love
falls in love with.
so we love Plum. I love it. I have to read
Yeah.
it. What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I do nothing well.
What a
One
talent!
skill, and that's writing. I am I can drive stick. I don't know. Is that a big deal in
So
Australia?
I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
And I feel like anyone who is like 20 years or younger cannot. So I feel like it is a skill set these days. Not to put me in the
It's
age
hard to
bracket of the 20-year-olds, but
yeah. It's hard to find a car now that is stick to even buy a car. So yeah, I can do that.
it's a good talent. If there is a
Yeah.
zombie apocalypse, you are set. You are
Yeah.
fine.
There's my assistant principal many years ago wanted to prank me. Um, because I think I had done something. I'd probably pranked him, and it was kind of like a revenge prank. And so he had stolen my car keys, and his intention was going to take my car, and he was going to drive it like onto the front lawn of the school and leave it there, which would have been really funny. But he couldn't drive stick, so he got my car backed out of the spot, and that's as far as he could get it. So he just left it there.
I have had so much fun. What do we need to be on the lookout for? What's coming out? Where do we find you?
So The Lone Wolf's Rejected Mate, which is book 3 in my paranormal series, is coming out December 26th, which is the day after Christmas. So we're gonna see. That was a interesting choice that I made. We'll see how that goes. Um, it'll either be amazing because everybody's staying home and they want to read books, or it'll be a disaster, one or the other. Um, and then I am on most social media platforms in one way or another. But I spend the most time, I have a Facebook reader group called the Cate C Reader Group because I suck at naming things. And I hang out in there all the time. And it's a really nice group of people that are super friendly and welcoming.
Yeah.
But I'm also on Instagram, TikTok until it dies, which I think might be imminent. And I have a TikTok that I should do something with at some point in time.
I love that. Well, I think I'm stalking you everywhere already, but I'll double check. And again, thank you so much for coming on today. I've had so much fun.
Same.
Likewise. All right. Well, I'm gonna love you and leave you. Have a good one, guys.